Well, Ty, we just agreed that we're going to write a book, and now we're putting on a conference. So we got a couple big to-dos off the top of this. But
One, two, three.
Coming up, Tim is going to give us all the deets from attending the Top Producer Summit in Nashville last week. The Modern Acre is presented by Yield. Yield helps turn irrigation pumps and other on-farm energy assets into virtual power plants that utilities can use to support the increasing load growth happening on the grid. To learn more about what Yield does, check out yieldenergy.com. All right, Tim, man, we are back. We took a week off, and I blame you. You were on a total boondoggle last week. Not only did you go to Nashville for the week, but you won an award. So you were just like rolling, the streets of Nashville, living it up, chin up, because you had just won the Top Producer Award. Pretty exciting, but we had to just take a week off of the podcast where you had a boondoggle and I was just working really hard.
Yeah, it was a big week for me. You had to double down and kind of carry more of the slack last week, so thank you for that.
Exactly. That's how it goes, though. You go, I go. Sometimes I got stuff, kids or school or trips, and you pick up the slack during those times. And that's why it's really good to have a business partner.
Yeah, it's so funny when we're like both on calls and like somebody has a last minute thing like, you could take this, right? And one of us just steps in for the other one.
We have done that so many times where one of us will set up a call with someone and then basically just punt it to the other person.
Yeah, we'll like hop on and be like, hey, Tyler, be like, actually, it's me. Ty had something, so I'm going to fill in here.
You are my assistant and I am your assistant, and that's how this all works. It's like the only way it works is we are both basically like, yes, you can tell me what to do, I will cover you, and it's mutual, right? Like that's the only way this all works.
Yeah, I think we've like created a new management structure or something like this. Yeah, we should write a book.
Ooh, we definitely should write a book. And maybe I have a working title, assistant to the regional manager.
I love it.
That's pretty hooky.
Yeah, we let's hold off a little bit till we commit to the book, but I'm liking this.
I'm really liking this. Maybe we can have AI write it.
I think it has legs. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's lock up the domain.
We've always wanted to go on a book tour. This is huge.
Yeah, our wives would love that.
Yeah.
All right, Tim. So, I want to dig into this. Obviously, congrats. I am like, you won this award, and I am just going on like proud brother circuit myself. I'm like every person I talk to, every meeting, I'm like, hey, by the way, did you know my brother won the Top Producer of the Year award? So I've been really living it up because I can brag, and it's it's not as cool for you to brag. So
yeah, it's weird for me to do. Like Jenna was like definitely telling all of her friends, like people are like, oh, you go to Nashville? I'm like, yeah, I go to this conference. She's like, well, you won an award, that's why you're going there, which is pretty cool.
I mean, it's pretty awkward to bring up in a conversation. Be like, "Hey, I'm Tim. I just recently won the Top Producer of the Year award." Like,
yeah, it's like meeting someone and be like, "Yeah, I have a podcast."
Oh man, I wait. How long do you wait? Like, what's the average like new friend? How many times do you hang out with them before you drop the podcast bomb?
For me, on average, it's like a couple of years. Like we were. We were hanging up with a few couples on Valentine's Day, and like we were like talking about Nashville and like saying like I have a podcast with my brother, and like you have a podcast, and it's like somebody I've known for like a year, but like yeah, it's not something you bring up. It's kind of cringe.
It's pretty. I feel like it's pretty cool to like not bring it up, and then all of a sudden like a year into the relationship, they're like, wait a second, you have a podcast?
They're like, how many episodes have you done? I'm like, oh, like 450. You're like
what? Yeah, you must be. If you've done 450 podcasts, you guys must be like so rolling in the dough, right?
Yeah, but crushing it.
No, not happening. All right, Tim. So yeah, I'm super proud of you. The Top Producer of the Year award. This is super exciting. And I think the whole family is really proud. It's a team award,
Totally.
as you mentioned.
Yeah, let's start with the event. I thought it was super interesting, Ty, just to like dive into it. Like we go to a ton of like West Coast focused shows, and it's kind of like the usual suspects and topics coming from kind of a West Coast bias, specialty crop. This one was like, I would say probably more Midwest, kind of row crop producers, livestock producers. Like didn't seem like a ton of specialty crop producers there. So it was just like interesting to hear the conversations that are happening and get in the mix there. The conference had a theme, Ty, which I loved. It was called Expand Your Empire. It just felt very on brand for us. It's because it's all about kind of how people are thinking about building businesses. So like seemed like a very like cool conference for the modern acre, like stuff that we talk about on the pod. But I like that the event actually had a theme. Like some of these are just kind of like very vague of like plant a flag and like make everything kind of rally around a certain theme. So that was kind of really cool.
What was the context of expanding your empire? Is it, give us more details. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, there was a lot on kind of vertical integration, like a lot of these businesses, like you're tacking on trucking companies or you're like holding grain storage and you have kind of multiple business entities operating under the same banner. There was like one session in particular that we'll chat about that I thought was really cool. But just to start it off, one thing I thought was really interesting was the governor of Tennessee gave like a 10-15 minute chat to kick off the conference, which I thought was super cool. Like we go to all these conferences. Never once have I seen the governor address like a crowd of like ag folks. So I thought that was cool. Like California, you usually get like the Undersecretary Ross that like gives her spiel. So it's like actually cool that the governor of the state came out for this event and just kind of speaks to the credibility of Farm Journal, what they're putting together. So that was a really cool open.
And so, yeah, the event is put on by Farm Journal, and that's who kind of facilitates this whole award thing. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. This is top producers, like one of their banners, but they have the Packer, which is kind of fresh produce related. They have quite a few like different brands underneath Farm Journal. I think they're one of the biggest in the US. The topics were pretty interesting. The first day, there was a conversation with Raphael Bostak, who's the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. So pretty interesting. Like you don't often get these kind of guests at a traditional ag conference. So it's kind of like macroeconomics, how policy is impacting rates and what that means for trickling down into agriculture. So just really kind of like thought-provoking stuff that like is kind of discourse that you would hear at like a business convention, not necessarily like an ag convention where it's not getting super granular about like this type of robotics or agronomy. It's more kind of like the business side of the agriculture industry. So that was a really interesting way to start off the show. And then my favorite panel, Ty, was with a guy named Stefan Soliev. Have you heard of this guy?
Not until you told me about him.
He's like the Elon Musk of agriculture. He's just he's a crazy entrepreneur. He's built like one of the most impressive land portfolios in the U.S. I think he's the 14th biggest landowner in the U.S., if I recall correctly, over 600,000 acres. But he comes from a Russian immigrant family in New York. His dad built up real estate holdings in New York. He left the family business and really just became personally interested in agriculture. He visited the Midwest and kind of started off with like buying a farm. It's just kind of like a real estate holding type approach, and then really became fascinated. And like in the speech, he's like, I just really wanted to drive a tractor. It felt like coming from New York of just like something totally different of just like the simple thing of wanting to drive a tractor. But he basically snowballed this land holdings and kept acquiring more and more land. So has a massive land holdings in Colorado and Kansas, acquired a lot of property in New Mexico where he has a livestock operation. And then the interesting thing they talked about is a recent acquisition about 5 years ago where he actually acquired a railroad in Kansas and Colorado to transport his grain, where he was basically seeing that there was money left on the table by only being a producer. And so to vertically integrate it further, he actually bought a railroad. And it was this crazy story where there's these two primary railroad carriers, the Union Pacific, and I forget the other one. And there was kind of this third defunct, was basically like no train cars were moving on it. And so one day they saw basically equipment coming to remove this third trail line, and they found some loophole. It's like transportation tax code or something where you can actually go like lobby to object to this railroad being dismantled, and actually made a play to acquire it. So it's this pretty complex thing to actually buy a railroad is quite complex. And now they basically have built this out where they're running 100-car train loads with grain basically to make this more efficient. So I'll pull up some notes from this conversation, Ty, that I found pretty interesting. So he's a first generation farmer. The moderator, Margie, asked what's kind of the biggest surprise being a first generation farmer, and not new to us, but his answer was producers. As a producer, you really aren't getting paid what you should for your products. I think every farmer has this perspective where you're doing, the hard work on the ground. You feel like you aren't fairly compensated for it. And he was just kind of like, just no no holds back of just kind of his thoughts being a first generation farmer. He said the system is built against most people and it's a country club of big ag businesses and it's really hard to break into. So it's just like interesting where like, you know, he comes from New York money. So it's not like he started from nothing, but he's like breaking into like this complex that is row crop farming and agriculture. So it's just like interesting to get his perspective where he's kind of the new kid on the block and he's not your typical looking farmer. He's got like full sleeve tattoos and just kind of like a totally different kind of style from most Midwest farmers. And so his approach was basically to change the model and be a transporter where he didn't want to necessarily just be the producer. He wanted to basically be the marketer, be the transporter. And that's what led him to acquire the railroad. And now he's basically kind of flipped and has become more of a marketing company, a grain marketer versus a producer himself, where they've leased out all of their farmland now and are basically renting it out to others. And they've developed this grain business called We Scan Grain. We can link that in the show notes, but they're basically kind of building this grain marketing company and really trying to make it like community focused, where the people that are renting their land, he said, you know, give us an opportunity to market your grain, but you're not obligated to move our grain. And so they've kind of built out this grain company as part of it. On the headwind side, he did have some current concerns. He said, like at a high level, he doesn't think about tariffs. He's more taking a more long-term perspective. He's pretty happy with how the current administration is handling things, but he did kind of signal that his biggest concerns around kind of the viability of the grain business in the U.S. is really South America, where they have the ability to do 3 crops a year and they have limited infrastructure now, but China's willing to pay for that infrastructure and build it out. And so he sees them being a more of a global powerhouse in years to come.
Okay. I have some follow-up questions. So this guy is like mega money and he seems like he's just been this like tycoon. Like he's just going old school, acquiring railroads, a grain trading business. This is wild. It's crazy to hear like stories like this of like these guys that are making mega moves in agriculture and you just don't really hear about them.
Totally. Yeah. Like I'd heard of this guy, like I think once or twice before, and it's like cool that he was on stage, like talking, like seems like a very, very open, transparent with what he's doing, but he's not like somebody that's a usual speaker at these things. So it's just like a cool guest to hear about. But yeah, from someone that comes from New York to do something totally different and kind of like dive into agriculture, build this out and be kind of low key about it is quite interesting.
It is telling, right, that he's moved away from the farming piece, right? So he recognizes that it's not, you know, you can't, there's a ceiling, a really low ceiling and a really, really low floor, basically an open floor to farming. I don't know if I haven't really thought about it like that, but that's kind of the reality, right? I think there is some years where you can have a good year, but I think it's relatively low ceiling. You need to vertically integrate. You need to have different business models to really make a ton of money, like serious money in ag and farming.
Totally. And I think that's what his aspirations are, like coming from that of like, I mean, not going to be complacent, be aggressive. How do we kind of capture more of the value upstream? So I thought that was super interesting.
Seems like a great guest for the pod. We got to get him on.
Got to get him on the pod. That'd be super fun. Yeah. Other than that, Ty, there was a lot of good breakout sessions, conversations happening that covered kind of a wide ranging area of topics. A lot of it was about, like how do you acquire more land to grow? How could you be thinking about new business operating lines to vertically integrate and, you know, buy a railroad or start a trucking company? Like how do you kind of expand beyond just the farm gate and find those better economics? It was interesting. Obviously, we're in a challenging farm economy, so there was kind of like that shadow cast over the event of just like we're trying to navigate this downturn in the farm economy, and land values are starting to stagnate or draw back. And so there's conversations about like land acquisition, what markets, what states are having the most kind of interest right now. Mississippi Delta came up as like a good kind of buying opportunity land wise currently. So yeah, just interesting perspective coming from California. Jen and I were walking around. We were like the token kind of like specialty crop people. There was like the video about our farm and us farms, and like these massive fields of basil and peppers. And it was just like a lot of people, I don't think I've seen that kind of scale of specialty crops. So it was fun being kind of the oddball at the show.
And Tim, what was the makeup of the crowd at the show? Like who's attending this show?
That's a really good point, Ty. It was actually like pretty heavily skewed towards growers and producers. Like where most of the shows we go to, it's like, industry people, the token farmers. Like this seemed to be like, felt like 50-50 of like producers to exhibitors that were there and people in the industry. So that was like a good mix walking around where there's actually people with boots on the ground. So that was quite interesting. I also like the having the kind of awards tied into an event makes it kind of interesting, where the first night there was like this award ceremony, and like night 2, like everybody from the convention met up at a bar on Broadway in downtown Nashville and was hanging out. So it was like, felt kind of more like a community vibe, where there was just kind of like everybody was kind of getting together in community settings both nights of the conference, where like a lot of the conferences that I've been to in the past, it's like, once the conference ends at 5 p.m., you're on your own kind of thing. This felt like it was kind of these extended networking opportunities, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I feel like this is just another area that I'm kind of been interested in, is like just the conferences, like business of conferences, like the business side of it, and then just like format. I think that there's just a lot of opportunity in ag to do some different stuff. It sounds like you got a little bit of that different aspect with what they're doing with Top Producer Summit. Yeah,
it was cool. Did you listen to My First Million, where Sean was talking about his basketball event with Mr. Beast and like that crew? Yeah, it was like, he was talking about that, of like all the business conferences were kind of like tired and just kind of these forced panels, all that kind of stuff. And so they like recreated that. So there might be a play in agriculture for something like that.
I know. I always struggle with like, I think the My First Million model is really, and for those that don't know, so My First Million, big business podcast, they started kind of this annual, very small event called, I think they called it MFM Camp. I don't know if it's still MFM Camp, where essentially they do like a highly curated, like invite only event where they have really, successful business people, entrepreneurs, and they come together, and like the format is essentially they play a ton of basketball. And then like in the evenings and in the off hours when they're not playing, they have kind of like, networking opportunities, a chance to go around the table and learn from each other and things like that. And I think that's super cool. I would love to do something like that. Like I'm in. I would be like, I think these are like billionaires attending the event, but like basketball and business, sign me up. I'm in. I don't know if Tim could hang, but yeah, I think that's a really cool approach. And I think there needs to be like another one that comes to mind, Tim, of something just different is, we talked about this before, but Slow Ventures did their like etiquette school, I think is what they called it, where they like brought in tech founders and stuff, and we're like, we're going to teach you guys how to be gentlemen. Totally. And they like taught them etiquette and how to dress well and how to have a 5-course meal and all that stuff. I'm by no means schooled in etiquette. I probably need to attend the school, but I think just like fun, different formats is really interesting to me, and I would love to do something in this space. But it's like, I always come back to, and I think this is like a common theme in conferences, like how much work you put in for an event or a conference and how little return you get, like to just break even, right? Like this is the challenge, I think, of the event conference space.
Totally. Yeah. I think the one that like Sean puts on, he pays for it out of his own pocket. So that's like a price loser just for opening up the networking opportunities. But yeah, I think it's like farm camp meets farmer etiquette of getting a bunch of ag tech CEOs out to the farm of like, here's the etiquette you use when you talk to a farmer to actually get them to buy something.
Seriously. Yeah. No, I think there's definitely a place. So if you're listening and you're liking what you're hearing, reach out and like maybe we could partner on it. Because I don't think Tim and I can do it ourselves, but we'd love to partner with someone on doing some sort of cool ag conference. Tim, what else? Any closing takeaways, lessons, insights from this event?
Well, Ty, we just agreed that we're going to write a book, and now we're putting on a conference. So we got a couple big to-dos off the top of this, but no, it was overall a super positive week. No, thanks to the Farm Journal team for having us out. It was an awesome time getting to get out to Nashville, accept the award on behalf of the family. So definitely would like to get back out. I think they're going to do it in Nashville again next year. It's an interesting one to kind of get on the circuit. So more Top Producer for me. Big fan.
Tim, did you like have an acceptance speech? Like Jenna didn't send me any video footage. What was the situation?
Pretty light on the acceptance speech, Ty. Like when Margie, the lady that puts on the event, she basically kind of teed me up of like, here's Tim, here's his background. Then they showed this video that they put together that was on the article that they put out where they came out to the farm and filled. So they played the video, and I kind of stood there with Margie, and then stood up to the podium and gave my short speech. Thanked my family, thanked you, thanked Jenna. So it was short and sweet, just kind of thanking the close family, and then thanking Farm Journal for having me, and then took the award. I need to show you the award, Ty.
Bust it out.
Have you seen it yet? Hang on.
No.
So here it is, Ty.
Ooh, that is nice.
My first award.
A huge first award. You've officially peaked. So
I'm not usually an award guy, but look at me now.
Look at you now. Well, guys, appreciate you listening. Hopefully you got some insights and takeaways from Tim's boondoggle out to Nashville. Appreciate you guys listening. Appreciate you putting up with us a week off. That we haven't done that, I don't think, ever. Maybe when my first child was born or something. So really appreciate you guys listening, the support. Make sure you're subscribed. And you know what? I'm just going to say it right now. Could you share this podcast with a friend? If you listen to The Modern Acre, you're subscribed, you listen a few times a month, share it with a friend who's in the industry that could benefit from learning about business, technology, sustainability in agriculture. We'd really appreciate it. It's hard to grow a podcast because it's not viral. It's not an Instagram reel, right? So we need to grow it organically. So please share it with a friend. Just tap that share button, share this podcast or your favorite episode that you've listened to recently with a friend. We'd really appreciate it. We'll be back next week. Appreciate you guys.